Okay, so hello everyone. So today we will have a lecture presented by Mr. Nіколас Вард, who is the digital consulting manager based in Dubai. He's working for Schlumberger. And the topic will be the impact of digital transformation of oil and gas industry. So Mr. Ward, thanks a lot for joining us and we are glad to hear you.
Thank you, Roman. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm happy to be here with you, presenting to you the latest and greatest on digital transformation and the way it's already impacting our industry. I'm not using the video because I want to save some bandwidth. Probably I'll activate it at the end for questions. This being said, if you have questions, please shoot them as I go. I don't want this to be a monologue, a one-way discussion. So in order for us to understand where digital and digital transformation are taking us as an industry, we need to understand some background before it, before the actual discussion within the oil and gas. Digital transformation is a phenomenon that aggregates a lot of evolutions and a lot of events. 4 of them actually over the past 40 years. The first one was the invention of the PC in the 80s. The second one was the introduction of internet in the 90s. And then we started having high-speed internet in the years 2000, and for the first time in its history, humanity started moving data at the speed of light. And then we started talking about big data and cloud in the years 2010. So the aggregation of these events and the fact that as an industry, but also all industries included, we started producing and manipulating data, humongous amounts of data, made it impossible for any one industry to generate a proper value from the data it's storing without the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And these are the keywords that we need to be aware of when we move on and discuss digital transformation and embarking on a digital journey. Okay, now let's zero in. Let's focus on our own industry and let's try to understand what kind of benefits or outcomes, sample outcomes, we could realize from digital as an industry in the oil and gas. One of the immediate benefits that we would like to be looking at when we implement digital transformation in our organizations would be cost savings. Okay, various types of cost savings. One of them could be reduction of unplanned deferrals, for instance. Okay, so cost reductions and cost savings is one part of benefits. Another one is increase in production, increasing the amount of oil and gas that we are extracting from the various reservoirs. The third type of outcomes and benefits that we look at would be also increase in performance and in optimization of processes. Okay, so for instance, we look at more accurate drilling management, more accurate exploration. We look at faster field development planning, which means that we're reducing the time for field development planning from, say, the typical 5 or 6 months to a newly acquired lead time of about 4 to 6 weeks. So we're reducing field development planning for 6 months to 6 weeks, roughly, which means that we are starting to produce in those wells 4 to 5 months earlier than the traditional historical way of doing the field development planning, and so on and so forth. So all these types of benefits and outcomes are to be expected from a successful digital transformation journey in the oil and gas industry. Now, let's understand a little bit more the subject and try to do some, to look at some use cases as we go. First and foremost, experts have written tons and tons of reports, and every year those reports were updated, and they all converge to the following. The amount of money in terms of savings, value creation, that is to be expected from the industry in the coming 10 years would be approximately about $290 billion, between 60 and $290 billion, all spread over exploration, well construction, development and planning, and production operations. The bulk of it in absolute money value is obviously in production operations, because this is where most of the CapEx and OpEx are. We're looking at anywhere between 6 to 35%. I'm just trying to find back my mouse. So 6 to 35% of savings in production operations alone. Okay. Now, in terms of perception and reality, and separating perception from reality about digital transformation, there are some basic concepts that we need to understand. The first one is that companies are heavily investing to digitize and create data. This is a fact. It has been an increasing investment over the past few years. This is a general statement that applies to all industries. We need to know that in the oil and gas industry, we are only using or generating value out of 4 to 5% of the available data. That's not a lot. The second statement is about big data and the cloud. Okay, so big data and the cloud, as I said, since the years 2010, are among the top 10 most used tech buzzwords. And somebody made a study and came out with the conclusion that big data and the cloud are ranked as the two most confusing tech buzzwords of the decade. It's simply due to the fact that a lot of suppliers and a lot of technology providers and other type of digital providers and consultancies, etc., they bring their own solutions, or they bring their own definitions about big data and the cloud. You add on top of this, obviously, various data residency restrictions, and we get a whole set of confusion around these two terms that are far from getting resolved in the near future. So good understanding of those two concepts is key to really ensuring no confusion is taking place and proper implementation of those concepts are properly done. Now, the coming two concepts are also very interesting. CDO is a Chief Data Officer, and the appointment of executive CDOs in companies is one of the fast-growing appointments over the past few years. And yet, in the oil and gas industry, only 3% of the companies in the oil and gas industry have a CDO, a Chief Data Officer. So this is another illustration of the amount of work and the amount of maturity that is still required in our industry to be aware how digital is important and how we can use it the right way. And then the last one is my preferred one. Although 70% of executives believe that digital transformation is essential for survival, yet 70% of all transformations would fail because of lack of leadership. That's translated by lack of vision, lack of change management, and poor collaboration. Okay, so here I'm setting the scene just for you to understand the difference between the oil and gas industry as far as digital is concerned and what's happening outside of our industry. Now, moving on, let's understand what is digital transformation. And before that, we also need to understand how we got here, okay? So typically, organizations, civilizations, cultures, they evolve in two ways. They start evolving by optimizing the tools and the technologies and the processes that they have at hand at the point in time, okay? And then a disruptive event takes place. A disruptive event takes place that forces this natural optimization-based evolution to the next level, okay? So this is what you see on this graph here, where the blue line is the natural evolution of things by optimization. And then the next green line is the one that happens after a disrupting event has taken place, and it takes the evolution to the next level. But what we need to note here, and that's the most important point in this slide, is that organizations or civilizations that miss the transition between the blue line and the green line will be forced into a downward slope. If they miss the disrupting event, if they miss this embracing the disruption that took place, they are doomed to wither and disappear. And we have examples of that, say in the digital space, for instance. We have seen huge mainframe suppliers and technology suppliers in the 80s just wither and disappear. The two examples I have in mind are DEC, DEC, which is short for Digital Equipment Corporation, which used to be one of the giants in the mainframe industry in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And another one also, another French company called Bull, B-U-L-L, which also disappeared. Both of them disappeared for the same reason. They did not believe that the PC, the personal computer, is going to be a game changer in the digital world. They missed that disruption, they didn't adapt to it, and then the result was that they just bankrupt. They went bankrupt. Okay? So this is just an illustration of how important it is to have the vision, understand the disruption, and embrace it, manage it, and integrate it in the company's strategy going forward. All right? Now, the way we define digital transformation in Schlumberger is as follows. We call it an enterprise-wide, strategic, disruptive, holistic, long-term, and continuous step changes in performance. Yes, I know, it's a mouthful, but it's full of meaning. And it's enabled by current and future digital technologies. And the key thing here is that digital transformation is not about embracing technologies. It's about having a strategy or a strategic approach to change the business model, okay? And change the business model by using the enablers that digital technologies offer in that specific point in time. And digital technologies actually are meant to just be obsolete year on year. So the strategy is meant to help the organization in ensuring that a roadmap, a strategic roadmap is meant to help the company manage the change and embrace new technologies year on year as those would arise. Okay? Now, again, moving on from this point, we need to understand why do we need to consider digital transformation. Why is the industry today aggressively embarking in various digital transformation journeys? I'll spare you all the numbers on this slide, and I will just focus on the sentence in red. So we need to just keep in mind that in addition to the 4 to 5% of our data that I mentioned a couple slides ago, where 4 to 5% of our data is generating value today, we need to also retain the coming two numbers. 3 to 5% of oil and gas equipment is only connected. And less than 1% of the data is utilized to make decisions. So basically, if you need to retain only three numbers at the end of this presentation, it would be 4, 3, and 1. 4% of oil and gas data is generating value. 3% of oil and gas equipment is connected, and 1% of data is utilized to make decisions. This is how bad it is. And the whole purpose, the whole mission of embarking on a digital transformation journey is to ensure that organizations are taking decisions based on a higher percentage of data. And this is where the role of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and so on and so forth comes in. Now, a proper digital transformation journey needs to take into consideration and use the existing technologies that are more or less summarized on this slide as well. So we look at security technology, industrial IoT, automation of processes, workflows, etc. User interface, data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, mobile technologies, and cloud, or any combination of all this. Okay. Now moving on, we clearly are moving into a new data-driven world where the sum of the data, good quality data, added to the technologies of artificial intelligence and automation, plus all the workflows and processes that have been re-engineered to absorb the new enabling technologies that we just talked about. The sum of all these three components is what will deliver proper, actionable insights on which organizations can base their decisions. And the history has shown us that faster decisions need to be made as we go. What's happening currently in the world, the unexpected, unprecedented events that we are living currently have proven the facts and have proven the case for digital more than anything else, unfortunately. What we see today has proven right all those organizations that already embarked on digital journeys in the past 5 years, for instance, and who are ready today to pick speed up after this crisis is over and recover from the crisis faster than their competitors who have not embarked on a digital journey so far because they didn't see the value of it, or they didn't understand it, or they just didn't have enough vision or enough advice to do so. Okay. Now, how do we do it in Schlumberger? How do we advise our clients in the digital transformation space and how to have a proper roadmap and the proper strategy to conduct a successful digital transformation journey? We do it in 3 phases. First, we help them identify business areas with the highest value impact from change to digital. Okay, so this is the context discovery phase. And then we design a digital strategy. This is phase 2. It's about designing of the strategy that would address the prioritized quick wins, but also we look at long-term transformational change. So looking at the same time at having quick wins on one side, and also identifying long-term transformational change is key for a successful digital journey to happen. We will look at lessons learned at the end of this presentation, and you will understand why it is important not to be short-sighted and be looking at only quick wins, but also be investing in long-term projects, programs, and initiatives that will actually make the transformation successful. And then, last but not least, we also help our clients execute their digital strategy, their digital roadmap. We help them to agile governance as well, because governance is crucial. Being agile is also important because, again, making the right decisions and evolving quickly to adapt to the context of the market and of the competition is one of the key things that any digital strategy needs to be allowing the organization to realize. And this is where the business value would come up from. Agility, adaptability in the governance. This is one of the key slides in this presentation. It shows, this is what we call the digital compass. It helps us help our clients answer 3 sets of questions. The first is, why do I need to change? Why do I need to go digital? The second set of questions is, what do I need to start with? So what are the priorities? And when do they need to be implemented and addressed? So this is about prioritization and about a timeline or a roadmap. And the third set of questions is, okay, I understand why, I understand what and when. Now, show me how to do it. And it's the third set of questions that we help answer our clients. Now, you notice that in this disc, when answering why, what, and when, we don't talk technical. We don't talk about technologies. We talk about strategy, about roadmap, about value levers, about digital maturity, assessments, about identifying quick wins and prioritizing long-term projects, and so on and so forth. Yeah. When we come to the how, when we get to the enablers, this is where we start talking about technologies, about technology roadmaps, about understanding how we manage life cycles of technologies, and so on and so forth. Okay. So the key rationale out of this, about what you see here, is that we're not building a digital strategy from scratch. What we're doing is actually we're digitizing your business strategy as an organization. And it's a key difference. Now, this is a more detailed slide that shows each step in a project or an engagement delivery mode. Each step, what it would entail in terms of deliverables and in terms of phasing as well. So step 1, for instance, it's, as I said earlier, it's about discovering the context, and it has its own set of deliverables. We're looking at infrastructure assessments, applications assessments, data assessments, and workflow assessments. This is all the results of the digital maturity assessment that we conduct. And the step 2 also has its own set of deliverables, which is the digital strategy blueprint and the report of the digital maturity assessment. Priorities have been defined also at the end of step 1, and the digital strategy is defined within step 2. Step 3 is about moving into program initiation mode. It's not yet the program delivery, but these few weeks would be spent in defining in the utmost details the various programs and projects that would help the organization in executing its strategy. So in step 2, we're talking exclusively strategy. In step 3, we're talking almost exclusively about program definition and project definition, just before a step 4 onwards, which would be the actual execution of this program mode. Okay. Now, one of the key elements in ensuring there is all the components in place for a successful implementation of a digital journey is to choose the right partner for the execution. And in our opinion, the right partner is a partner that knows very well the oil and gas industry. At the same time, also has a mastery and a lot of skills and know-how and knowledge in developing digital technologies. Okay, and this is what makes the right partner the ideal partner. So this partner is not going to be your typical supplier of technologies only. It will be your digital partner for the foreseeable future, because of all the programs and projects of various nature that we just looked at. So this partner will help you in defining your vision and roadmap, and defining your business value levers, and doing the digital maturity assessments, identifying priorities, doing the technology life cycles of your digital ecosystem and completing it with the missing technologies, doing your process and workflows, re-engineering and the appropriate governance of those processes and workflows, identifying your digital capabilities, assessing your digital capabilities as an organization, and ensuring a proper roadmap for evolving those is put in place. And also, last but not least, ensuring that a proper change management framework is in place. So it's much, much beyond technology. There is a lot of change management that is going to happen. And that change management will cover all the elements of the compass that you see on the screen. Now, in terms of actual value delivered from various projects that we implemented, this is public information that what you see on the screen. These are various reports and sources coming from either the World Economic Forum or other consultancies, like the Boston Consulting Group, who referred to projects that we have already implemented and the value in percentage that have delivered to our clients. For instance, on the first line, you see that we have helped increase the exploration activity of one of our clients in India by roughly 10%. This is what we call increased prospect fidelity and recovery factor by roughly 10%. The second one is about reducing the field development planning costs by 3 to 5%. So careful, this is the cost of the field development planning, not the time. And it doesn't take into consideration the fact that we have front-loaded the production of the hydrocarbons earlier than initially anticipated. Okay, it's an important difference. So this is only the cost of the field development planning that has been reduced by 3 to 5%. The third one is about reducing the drilling time between 15 and 60% for one of our clients in I don't think we have the right here to disclose details about this client, but it's an operator and it's been done in 2016. Okay. The fourth one is increasing the efficiency up to 70%. Again, another client. And then we go to increase production between 3 to 5%, and then at the end, a good one, reducing the cost of between 20 to 40% for, again, one of our clients, and that goes back to January 2017. Okay. So a lot of good value taken out of successful implementations of various digital solutions and technologies. Now let's talk a little bit about the lessons learned. Lessons learned from others, and others could be other clients, other competitors, or just executed projects. So what we saw is that the most frequent reasons for failing in implementing a proper digital transformation journey are the following. First, the most frequent reason for that is underestimating the business scope. So clients would, or organizations would be looking much more at technical scopes and technology implementations, but then they would not give enough attention to the business scope. The second one is, and this is very typical also, is about selecting a technology upfront and then looking for use cases for it. The third one is about underestimating expectations for time to change, then not investigating the implications of digital on the organization, and then also ignoring the habits, probably also not applying enough rigor in program management and governance, inadequate value strategy. So what are we expecting and when in terms of value creation? Not understanding the help required from the outside. A lot of organizations, especially large organizations, would think that they can get away with internal initiatives not being supported from experts and advisors and consultancies from the outside world. 9 is impatience. This is also typical. Looking at quick wins only and not willing to invest in long-term projects. This is typical for organizations that feel that they want to produce quick results, or they are already in a situation of crisis, and they don't have the time to invest in projects that last for a year, 2 years, or 3 years before they start delivering results. And obviously the last one is rivalry, whether it's internal between various verticals or externals between various service providers. Okay, now approaching the end of the presentation, I would like just everyone to remember those key takeaways. The first one is that digitalization, aka digital transformation, needs to be business driven. The technology is an enabler for the transformation. The second takeaway is that digitalization is a multi-year journey, and it's not an end state destination. So the journey is in constant implementation and constant evolution. And then the third and most important takeaway is about the choice and the partnership with a strategic partner that owns and knows the E&P industry and that already have a lot of expertise in the digital technologies and the digital space. Okay, last slide. In order for any organization to be able to produce and showcase successful business outcomes that is enabled by digital agility and digital technologies. This organization needs to foster the skill sets of a supplier like for instance us in Schlumberger, where we have the consulting services, the digital consulting services, the digital technologies that we've been developing over the past 35 years. The E&P domain expertise and knowledge. The combination of these three is paramount. We add on top of those our experience in transformation programs, in change leadership framework, and in developing digital and innovation technologies that have direct impact on accelerating the value out of the digital ecosystem that is at stake. Right? And that's it for me. I covered all the slides I wanted to cover, and we'll be happy to take your questions.
Yes, hello. I have one question.
Sure.
Yeah. How do you think in the nearest future we would be able to take advantage? Like, would those numbers increase, like the 4 and 1 and 3% that you were talking about?
So Ali, the idea is from digital transformation is to ensure that you start from the end, which is the 1%. The end result is to ensure that the organization is increasing that 1%, using more data to make decisions. Okay, to do that, we need to address the next number, which is the 3%. 3% of the equipment in the industry is connected. Only 3%, I would say, is connected. So the organization needs to connect more equipment. And connectivity of equipment is about connecting downhole equipment. And here we are in an area that is just one segment of digital transformation, which is digital oil field. I'm sure everyone has heard about digital oil field projects, which is typically connecting equipment to be able to ensure that data extraction from downhole is seamless and is more or less automated. Okay, and then the third number, which I mentioned, which is the overall data in the industry that's generating value, which is between 4 to 5%. It's a natural result of the implementation of the two previous numbers, and also plugging on top of that the artificial intelligence and machine learning tools that will allow the organization to simply create more value from its data, either for decision making, that's the 1% today, or just enhancing their performance or reducing their costs, or front loading the production of their reservoirs because they are having shorter field development planning cycles, or because they're having more accurate exploration processes, and they can identify where to drill directly without having to go through trial and errors as we do it in the traditional way. Okay. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Obviously, I will be at your disposal offline if you prefer. These are my details: mobile number, email. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you want to contact me offline and have a separate dedicated discussion around all these topics, more than happy to do so. As Roman said earlier, I'm based in Dubai, but I cover Middle East and Africa, and I came a few times also to Kiev and other countries in Europe to consult with our clients and to propose to them our products and services in digital.
Okay, Mr. Ward, thanks a lot for your lecture. It was interesting and very, I would say, new for all of us. So we will post your video on YouTube by the end of the day, and then maybe if there are any questions, people will be talking to you via email. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And stay safe, everyone.